So is that part of this? You'd have to think that's part of the Golden Dome. Canadian government hasn't been able to say yet.
It has come full circle. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we got Donald Trump announcing with NATO that they have come to the basis of an agreement. We got more from the WF, more global elitists getting called out, Melanie Joly getting called out. We got a bunch of stuff. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we've got Ezra Levant going out there and doing the dirty work that no other news organization would do, grilling these politicians on the street. We've got Melanie Joly here. She does not want to talk to Ezra Levant.
Why are you cozying up to China with their human rights abuses? China and Hamas, there's a bit of a pattern there, don't you think?
I'm sorry. Are you going to trip right now?
No, I don't think so, but I'm worried that you are whitewashing China's human rights abuses just to troll Donald Trump.
Well, listen, you can explain that to your viewers. We have a different point of view. And so we're doing it for us, for Canada.
Well, your prime
for us, for Canada. I think that was a little bit of a Freudian slip there. She quickly threw that in because she realized that sounds bad if she says for us, as in the Liberals.
Minister said that China was the #1 security threat, and now he's making a partnership with them.
I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
So you heard what the Prime Minister had to say.
What do you have to say about this?
Thank you.
Listen, guys.
Thank you.
We're just trying to do a job here. Thanks.
And I'm trying to do my job as well.
That's great.
Run away. Bravely run away. Bravely run away. There's Canada's great pride right there.
Yeah, she is a coward. You notice too, her body language here. She was grabbing onto his hand right here and pushing the microphone away.
Your Prime Minister said that China was the #1 security.
She's trying to create distance here. She's uncomfortable, not because he's a physical threat, but because he's asking tough questions she doesn't want to answer. I mean, he's talking about China and human rights abuse. She knows full well what they're doing there. They're selling out our country. Then there's something in it for them. Moving ahead, talking about Donald Trump and the Arctic, Greenland. We've got rumblings of a deal with Donald Trump. I just shared this one from Table Salt. China literally posts photos from their new fleet in the Arctic, but Canadians watch the CBC, so they don't know about this. And as it says at the bottom, members of Chinese expedition to the Arctic in August, an icebreaker that ferried them there. So obviously Donald Trump saying it's for security. I've been saying it's for critical minerals. We have some rumors now of what the deal is. But first, to set this up, how the people of Greenland feel about this.
Donna, there's been a lot of anxiety and worry here ever since Donald Trump intensified his claims that the United States, quote, needs Greenland. Officials here have taken his talk very seriously. What the president said in Davos Wednesday offers little comfort. The Greenlandic take on the red MAGA hat says it all.
A way to show Trump that he's not welcome here.
Summing up how many people here feel about the U.S. president and his threats to take over the very place where they live. What's your biggest fear?
Invasion.
For weeks now, Greenlanders have woken up every day to yet another online post, another threat, and it's exhausting. Government officials have been holding news conferences, not only for their citizens, but for an increasing number of international press, all wondering what's next. Wednesday, officials representing Inuit people here, the majority of the population, urged people to stay united, to concentrate on trying to find some sense of peace, despite the words of the U.S. leader. The government has even gone so far as to release a 5-day emergency preparedness plan for residents, just in case. Advice like having a supply of food and a first aid kit on hand, and how to prepare for power outages.
What, power outages? Food? What, Trump is going to come and steal their meals? What is this nonsense? So we are watching Global News with Donna Freeze, and that should tell you everything you need to know considering her interview with Pierre Poilievre, if we can call it an interview. Partisan hit job attack piece from Christmas.
Tuesday, Greenland's prime minister warned Greenlanders to be ready in case of invasion, even though he also called that unlikely. Word that Trump said he would not resort to force has done little to ease minds inside and outside Greenland.
I think he's trying to find an out. I think that's a good thing. He's trying not to lose face.
But he always, changes his mind. And one day it's one thing and the other day it's another thing.
From an intelligence perspective, we're faced with a warning problem because, we have to collect so and so many details as to that can tell us something about the real intentions behind these things.
Donna, Donald Trump has put people here in an uncomfortable position, putting them on an emotional roller coaster while also putting them in a global spotlight. Many here would just rather be left in peace.
Criticism of the mercurial president does come with risk, as free trade talks are set to start this month.
The reality is Canada's GDP is 75% dependent on the United States. Canada's geopolitical decisions are not the hinge on which history swings.
I'll say this now. The Prime Minister has me purring.
Domestically.
The Prime Minister has me purring. Never thought I'd hear that on national television.
Even some conservatives are praising Carney's approach.
There's nobody better qualified than he to lead us at this point.
This guy's a complete idiot if he thinks Mark Carney's the best person to lead. How about you do some research? Reagan Watts? I don't care if this guy was a former staffer for Stephen Harper's government. He's clearly uninformed of the situation. He can go back to purring thinking about Mark Carney.
Today, after he backed off those threats, the U.S. markets bounced back, erasing most of yesterday's big losses.
Something else I noticed about the markets, if you look at all the big bank stocks in Canada, this is Royal Bank, and this is the entire history, all the way back until 1996, where the stock price was $12. You can see in recent history here, it just completely exploding to the moon. And if we go just the past year, you can see Mark Carney got in right there. If you go 5 years, you can really see it. Yeah, so Carney gets in right there, and it is skyrocketed. So banker becomes prime minister, and then the bank values just explode. And this is for all of the banks. This is RBC. We see the exact same thing with TD. Mark Carney gets in right here. Kaboom, it goes up. Exact same thing with Scotiabank. Carney gets in right here, right to the moon. And with Donald Trump talking about Greenland and the thought of military invasion, the markets went down. The talks of a deal, the markets go back up. And it's going to continue to spike here until we know the full details. But what we do know, Donald Trump came up with this based on very productive meeting that I had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte. We have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect February 1st. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. The market's erupting from this. Here we have Trump briefly commenting on this.
We have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland. And it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
Now, we do have this from this account here, the Kobesi letter. This is an account with 1.2 million followers. I can't verify this information, but this account is often posting stuff that is true. I don't think I've seen anything that isn't true in the short time that I've been following them, but it says breaking. Initial details on the Trump-Greenland deal have emerged, involve small pockets of land for the U.S. U.S. involved in Greenland's mineral rights. There it is. It's all about critical minerals, and the small pockets of land would allow them to have military bases with no threat of those bases ever being taken away. If we look at what's happening with the UK and Mauritius and the US military base.
Mr. Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has decided that he wants to give the Chagos Islands with our military base to Mauritius. Wants to give it to them.
Here's a look at that military base. This island here is Diego Garcia. You can see the military base there. It's a very skinny little island here that didn't fully fill in. Obviously, that situation is rubbing Trump the wrong way. So to recap, small pockets of land for the U.S. U.S. involved in Greenland's mineral rights. Duration of the deal has an indefinite time frame designed to block Russian influence in Greenland. U.S. Golden Dome system will be involved. Opens the door to U.S. back-end infrastructure investment. Trump is looking to secure land, minerals, and defense in one deal. So once again, this is just rumors right now. This is not confirmed yet, but we do know based off of Trump's own message here that something is going on. And we got a panel here talking about this.
No details about what this actually means versus the kind of thing that Trump is saying. Is that accurate? Yeah. I mean, look, Vashi, this is vintage Donald Trump. The tough talk, lashing out, threatening forced tariffs. Suddenly, there's a deal. And doesn't he look good? And was this the play all along?
Of course it is. And I've been saying that for the last 4 days, yet all these European leaders have been blowing their lids and just, oh my God, Donald Trump is invading. He's bringing in the tanks. No, he's not. And of course, the mainstream media in Canada was blowing that up to be this big scary thing because we're going to be next. Come for us next with his tanks and start rolling out this plan. There's been this ridiculous story of how Americans could be invading Canada through the border and how we would defend ourselves. It's so ridiculous. Of course, then you see those like viewer written articles saying that we need to keep all our pew-pews to fight back the Americans. This is all propaganda and fear-mongering by the mainstream media. Obviously, we know what Donald Trump does. He keeps doing the same thing over and over. He's very bolsterous. He pulls back. He gets a deal. That's what he's doing. Will it just be small parts of Greenland? They get the mineral rights. They get to secure what they want. And if they get that kind of deal, then they don't have to pay Greenland like $600 million a year that the Danish are doing. It's a better deal for America that way. Yeah, we've got it here. Trump's Greenland gambit, 3 possible end games. It says right here, to grasp why Greenland remains with Denmark, one must track financial aspect. At present, Greenland's economy cannot sustain itself independently because it's only 57,000 people. It's just not enough. So Denmark supplies them with approximately $600 million each year. So possibly Donald Trump got access to critical minerals without having to pay that. This is the art of the deal. We're seeing it live, if this is how the deal truly pans out.
I will say, he has a fondness with Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who actually came to Donald Trump's defense earlier in the day saying, look, he's got a point here. Arctic security is very important. We should maybe beef it up. They had discussions. And so this framework could basically be a number of things. It could be allowing more U.S. bases on the island, which under a 1951 treaty, the U.S. can do anyway. Perhaps getting other NATO allies like Finland, Norway, Canada to send more security in, more troops, more icebreakers, that sort of thing. Those are the kinds of things that might ease Donald Trump's concern. And also, he mentioned the Golden Dome. Perhaps there's some kind of infrastructure or investment in infrastructure on the Arctic island. But no, we've heard nothing from the White House in terms of details, just that Donald Trump seems pretty pleased with this framework, this possible deal, saying it will be indefinite for all time.
So that there, her language there does line up with the list of things there that potentially are in this deal. So we'll likely find out in the next 24 to 48 hours.
It's at times, maybe most of the time, a bit of a fool's errand to try and figure out why the president is doing what he's doing, or in particular, why he's backing down from something that he's said so frequently over the last number of weeks. In this case, it seems like with tariffs a number of months ago, the markets may offer a clue. And I want to bring up for our viewers sort of a trajectory over the past few days as the rhetoric hyped up on Greenland and the market sank. And then this morning, when the markets, they all closed up, as our viewers can see there. This morning, as soon as he said he wouldn't use force, you saw a big bump in the markets. And then as soon as this announcement was made, an even bigger bump. Does that offer us any clues, do you think?
I think obviously he's been under pressure. We know that Americans are against it. Polling has shown that. We know that many Republicans are against it. Polling has shown that. I just think that we should be, I know there's great relief in this de-escalation right now, particularly for Greenlanders and the Danes. I'd be a little worried about Mark Rutte negotiating sovereignty on behalf of Denmark and the Arctic, much of which is in Canada. I think that the way that this so-called resolution or deal is framed raises more questions than it answers, and certainly here in Canada too.
Yeah, Mattina's point segues exactly into what I wanted to ask you, Mike, because particularly that line, the entire Arctic region, like right away, alarm bells in our bureau, like that, that's clearly includes Canada. Does Canada have any information on what the heck this means?
Not yet. And, you know, we have at the Bureau here tried to reach out to the Prime Minister's office, understanding that the bulk of the Prime Minister's office is now flying over the Atlantic, due to land here back in Ottawa at roughly about 8:15, 8:30. So no answer just yet. They are working on one, the Prime Minister's office tells us. Same thing with Global Affairs Canada. They're likely.
It's unlikely Mark Carney knows what's going on, because he's likely been cut out of all this conversation because he just insulted Donald Trump. He just did a deal with the devil in Xi Jinping. Why would he talk to him? Clearly knows Carney would rather cozy up with a dictatorship ripe with human rights violations than do what's best for the Canadian people. He knows what's going on up here.
Also trying to parse through it themselves, Vashi, because whether or not Canada was part of this deal, is part of this deal, that's unclear. We know there had been discussions, there have constantly been discussions about our defenses on our northern border, specifically in the Arctic, making sure that we can guard against any kind of incursion from Russia or China. We know, and you know, I was on that trip with Mattina, the Prime Minister's first ever trip as Prime Minister. March 18th, he lands in Iqaluit and announces a $6 billion over-the-horizon radar that he says is going to go up there, that will be surveilling in the Arctic. So is that part of this? You'd have to think that's part of the Golden Dome. Canadian government hasn't been able to say yet. And as I said, partly because they're likely just getting some of the information now.
Power play is completely liberal through and through. Looking at Google Maps here. So what could potentially be offered up or part of this deal? It said small pockets of Greenland. Likely it'll be the most valuable spots where critical minerals are. That's what the mineral rights will allow them to go there. But the actual spots America would get where would be strategic spots. It's going to be right here close to this area of this canal here, because this is where Russian submarines will come through. So they're obviously going to want to have bases like on these spots right here where they can monitor the closest spots to try to detect submarines, because they've had a lot of submarines come down to America here through this channel here and they can't detect them. And they know that and they don't like that, because those submarines could come right down right by Washington and then, launch a nuke from the water there right into Washington, D.C. But furthermore, talking about the Arctic itself, one must ask, is that start to include pieces of Canada over here, Baffin Island? I don't know. Moving ahead, we got a couple other clips from Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum. Here he's absolutely blasting the Somalians that have ripped off the American taxpayers.
In Minnesota reminds us that the West cannot mass import foreign cultures which have failed to ever build a successful society of their own. I mean, we're taking people from Somalia, and Somalia is it's not a nation, got no government, got no police, got no military, got no nothing. And then we have this fake congressperson who they just reported is worth $30 million. You believe this?
So he's talking about a Somalian Congress lady that looks like she may be allegedly involved in helping this money flow into Somalians in Minnesota.
Ilhan Omar talking about the Constitution provides me. She comes from a country that's not a country. And she's telling us how to run America. Not going to get away with it much longer, let me tell you. The explosion of prosperity and conclusion and progress that built the West did not come from our tax codes. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precious inheritance that America and Europe have in common. These are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, they're pirates. They're good pirates, right? But we shoot them out of the water just like we shoot the drug boats out. They're not pirating too many boats lately, do you notice? When they go out into those boats, they want to take over $1.5 billion tanker loaded up with oil. And they say, we're going to blow up your boat. They have powerful weapons. You hit the side of the boat, you blow the whole thing up. The insurance companies are petrified, so they say, just give them the boat, we'll give them money instead. And I don't do that. We blow them right the hell out of the water. We see them going out, we blow them out of the water. We don't have any pirates so much anymore. If we do, they won't be there long. We've cut down with the hitting of the boats that are loaded up with drugs, including submarines. Can you believe they actually buy small, they call mini subs, very fast. They're meant for drugs. We've knocked out 2 of them. The Democrats say they were fishing. You have ruined somebody's fishing weekend. I would say a submarine is not a fishing boat. You don't fish. But we've knocked down drugs by water, the oceans, the sea, by 97.2%. Think of that.
So he's not wrong with the Somalian attacks on boats. They often will go in these little crappy yet fast boats off the shore when a big tanker comes by, and then they'll board it and hold them up with their pew-pews and commandeer the boat. So often these big tankers, smaller boats, they'll all hire security with very large pew-pews that shoot very fast. And if they even come close, they just start unloading fire. They don't even hesitate. They just try to blast the Somalians before they get close to the tankers. Often these tankers too will have defense mechanisms at the bottom. They have nets. They have all sorts of spike traps and things to prevent them to climb up the boat. There's a ladder on the side of these boats, and that's where they come up, and that's where they put these traps or things to block the passages. It's a real problem. He's right here when he says Somalia is not really a country. It doesn't have proper government. It doesn't have military. It's just essentially a bunch of gangsters and goons ripping off its own citizens. So it's just interesting that they found a way to rip off the American taxpayers. How long has that been going on? We got BlackRock CEO Larry Fink here with a bit of a bizarre speech.
That's the goal of this year's World Economic Forum at Davos, to expose people to wider ranges of voices, to a wider range of ideas, maybe even an argument, but one that we have deeper understanding from.
This is coming from the guys that are trying to indoctrinate the citizens of the world, and they're talking about a wider range of ideas and thoughts.
And I think not all of it's going to sound as good as the one that you enjoyed at that moment, like in music. And like in music, you're not going to agree with everything. But if you're willing to listen, it might leave something with you inside. It might stay with you. And maybe you will evolve and be better for it.
They've completely lost their mind. That's what I'm getting from this.
And that's the mission of the World Economic Forum this week in Davos.
I thought it was to penetrate the cabinet. Klaus Schwab got caught up in some legal troubles. He's no longer there. Another sick man. What a clown. We want less government. No thanks. Yeah, not a lot of fans here, Larry.